Well, my friends, I think we can already call it Dexter. Resurrection is the best series of the year and also the best revival of an old series from the early 2000s because what an episode 9 that was. I was filled with a mix of emotions from the very beginning to the end of the series, finishing up completely impacted by the courage the director showed in this episode's ending. And now we're in the final stretch, literally because next week is the last episode of this season and we already know that 2 more seasons have been confirmed. However, let's talk about episode 9 now because honestly, what they did with Batista this season was inhumane and there was no way he could have had a different ending than the one he got in this episode. And today is the day for us to talk about the penultimate episode of Dexter Resurrection, the final phase, as I mentioned to you, and it's also full of references even to Brian Moser. So if you like Dexter, stick with me until the end of this video because this analysis is packed with information and also with theories for the next and final episode. And if you don't like spoilers and haven't watched episode 9 yet, leave your like here, share this video with someone, and if you want to hype up the video, you help me out a lot. And now, without further ado, let's talk about Dexter, Episode 9, Touched by an Angel. Roll the intro. Hey guys, welcome to another video here on the Janela Pop channel. I'm Jeff, and today we're here once again to talk about Dexter Resurrection, as we've been doing for a few weeks now. And since you all enjoy it, today is the day for us to analyze Episode 9, which for me was definitely one of the best episodes of this season. And I know I say this to you every time, but it's impossible not to get excited and get goosebumps with everything that's been happening in the Dexter Resurrection series. They're really keeping everything we loved from the classic series, right? Back in the Dexter Prime days, those truly great seasons of Dexter. And with each episode, I keep getting more and more surprised. And I know you all feel the same way because you keep commenting on my videos here that the series is really mastering what Dexter was at its peak in the early 2000s. Now let's talk about the episode, right? Because I was definitely really hyped, and I even made a video yesterday talking about what could happen, and some of those things actually did happen. I had already told you that judging by the trailer, it looked like a death was confirmed, and it really was. But let's go back to the beginning of the episode, which picks up right where episode 8 ended, at the restaurant where Prether had just arrived and started a conversation with Dexter. We saw there that he uses Harrison as a kind of leverage to make Dexter more cautious around him because Dexter was hiding information, hiding his son, and the conversation they have outside when Dexter confronts Prether during their talk, he ends up saying, "Stay away from my son." The only thing I could remember there was when he had that paternal instinct with Rita's daughter back in the classic Dexter season, when a guy started secretly taking pictures and then Dexter had to kill that guy. I even forgot his name, but that guy didn't fit Harrison's code, yet Dexter did it out of paternal instinct. That's the only thing I could connect to that moment when Dexter went after Prether. However, Prether ended up saying that he wasn't interested in Harrison, he just wanted to know the whole truth about Red, who he really was and how he lived, right? Because he had a son and Prether didn't know that. And as we know, Prether likes to have control over everything and everyone, especially the serial killers under his wing, under his umbrella. And he ends up saying that it wasn't him who was suspicious, but rather Charlie. And speaking of Charlie, in this episode, we saw Dexter going after her, right? After she showed up at the hotel and interrogated Harrison at gunpoint using emotional blackmail there. And after that scene where Harrison told the whole story about Charlie coming after him, Dexter went to look into Charlie's story. And for the first time this season, we actually find out how she ended up finding Prether. Because after he broke into her house and saw her sick mother there, he also sees the pictures that show us she served in the army and was also part of the secret services. And in the next scene, for the first time, we really see Dexter taking on the role of the dark passenger, which is Red, right? Because we see him sneaking into Charlie's car, putting his weapon, his killing equipment that the dark passenger used around Charlie's neck and blackmailing her so that she would stay away from Harrison. And this is the first time during this season that I see Charlie's composure breaking, her mask falling, and she crying right because of everything that happened. She talks about her story, how far she went to meet Prether, and when it was that she started working for Prether, right? After all, Prether pays the doctors and also covers all of her mother's treatment, giving her mother more time to live, right? However, there, Dexter still ends up hurting her before leaving and tells her to stay away from his son, right? From Harrison. And in the next scene, we see her talking with Prether. And man, I don't know about you, but Prether is really very disturbed and he's a major suspect for me as to who the real New York Ripper is. Because come on, the guy likes to see people hurt. And when he sees the cut on Charlie's neck, it really seems like he gets excited by all of it, right? He talks about her surviving the dark passenger, saying that's magnificent. And in parallel with that, we see Batista's story unfolding and also Detective Wallace investigating, right? The Ripper, the New York Ripper, who was only mentioned that one time. But I thought it was cool that the series showed she's following Dexter's tips, the ones he gave her in the last episode about the hook being shorter, and she ended up investigating. Now she has a line of investigation about who might have access to this object, which is the murder weapon that the New York Ripper uses. And she even made a comparison between the victims and who could have access to this weapon. And I think in the last episode, we'll get a bit more feedback about the New York Ripper, like I mentioned to you all, at the gala dinner, right? Hosted by Prether himself, which will take place at his house. I had theorized it would be at the hotel, but we've now confirmed that it will actually be at Prether's house. Maybe we'll see the New York Ripper being revealed there. At least I think that before the last episode ends, they'll give us that hook for the second season and keep the hype going until then, because as you know, that's what they like to do, keep the hype alive. And now let's talk about the final scene, right? Because after Harrison went to live at Dexter's house, during the episode, we saw Dexter catching him and Gigi in the act and then sending him to Gigi's house so he'd be safer. And so we see Dexter going to Prether's house because he wanted to talk to Prether, as he ended up doing. But a minute before all that happened, we saw Batista trying to break into Prether's mansion and getting caught, revealing Dexter Morgan's true identity. And in that scene, the only thing I could think was, Batista, why did you have to do this crap? Now you're really screwed and you drag Dexter down with you. And that's exactly what happened, because in the final scene, we see Prether interrogating Dexter, talking about his real identity. He already knew who Dexter was and even knew who the Bay Harbor Butcher was. And right after, we saw that he had captured Batista, but he didn't just lock him up anywhere. He tied him to Brian Moser's table, the ice truck killer that Dexter had killed, the same one from the early seasons. So that's a huge reference. And on top of that, Prether gives Dexter the original knife so he could kill Batista, so he could watch. I thought that line of dialogue between him and Dexter was cool, because he says he knows several serial killers, and he says that from that moment on, he knew it was really Dexter who killed both Luel and the Gemini killer, and he also ended up framing Mia. Since people had already theorized that Mia wasn't dead, I think now we can finally say for sure that she really is dead. And right after that, he gives Dexter the knife so that, well, not Dexter, but the Bay Harbor Butcher would kill Batista. And in that exchange, it really seemed like Batista was going to die right there. But Dexter, out of all the consideration he had for his longtime friend, as we've been saying, he tried to help Batista. But Batista, in his fury, in his moment of rage, instead of trying to team up with Dexter so they could escape and then maybe try to arrest Dexter, since now he knew the whole truth about the Bay Harbor Butcher, he just goes after Dexter, man. And I don't know why Batista does that, because there was a chance for at least one of them to get out alive. But what we end up seeing is him going after Dexter and getting shot by Prether, which ended up killing him in this episode. I was really upset, because what Batista became this season is totally different from the Batista in classic Dexter. He was a great friend to Dexter, defended him tooth and nail, and now he suddenly became obsessed with the Bay Harbor Butcher. And even on his deathbed, the only thing I could see in his expression was that he looked like Dokes, because even in his last words, while Dexter was telling him he didn't kill Maria Laguerta or Dokes, the only thing Batista said to him before dying for good was, "Go fuck yourself, Dexter Morgan." So there was no way not to remember Dokes in that scene, right? And after that, we see Prether locking them inside the vault. And now I don't know how Dexter is going to get out of this, because now he's locked inside a vault in Prether's mansion, where that whole event for the New York cops is going to happen. And besides that, we saw that at the very end of the episode. In the last second, Dexter loses control as Batista dies in his arms, showing us that maybe Brian Moser himself is going to take over Dexter's mind now, just like happened in some episodes of classic Dexter. And that's not just a theory, because the teaser for the next episode seems to have already confirmed that Brian will actually show up in the next episode, and maybe we'll see a more insane and out of control Dexter after losing his great friend of many years at Prether's hands. Man, I really don't know how Dexter is going to escape from that vault, but one thing I do know, Dexter will find a way, because he always does, and Prether for sure. He's going to pay by the end of this next episode. And if Prether doesn't die, I guarantee you that at least Charlie is going to end up done for, and maybe Prether will stick around for another season, at least for the beginning, or he might end up getting arrested after Dexter possibly reveals his whole vault with all those serial killers he's got. And man, this is just a theory, I don't know. I want you to leave your thoughts in the comments, because honestly, episode 9 left me euphoric from start to finish. I was there, I was anxious the whole time, feeling like something bad was going to happen. And when Batista ended up dying, I was really sad. Like I told you, those of us who watched the original series have an emotional attachment to him, but the show has shown that they're not afraid to kill off main characters, and I think from here on out, it's only gonna get worse. So that's it. Leave your thoughts in the comments about what you thought of episode 9 of Dexter. Was it better than the others? Was it better than episode 4, which had been considered the best episode so far? I really enjoyed it. For me, it was definitely better. And we had to say goodbye to our dear old friend Batista from the Dexter series. From now on, maybe we'll see a more insane Dexter hunting Prether and the other serial killers like crazy. Will he lose control, or in the end, will Harry come back and take over Dexter's mind, keeping him more controlled, unlike Brian Moser? So, leave your theories for the last episode in the comments, and don't forget, okay? If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe, because it really helps me out. Turn on notifications, because 90% of the people who watch the videos here aren't aren't subscribed. And don't forget to leave your like because that helps me a lot too. If a little Hyde Park button shows up down here, hit it. And if you want to become a member, it's just $4.99. You'll get access to content before everyone else, plus exclusive content just for members. That's it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, a big hug, and I'm out.